Over 150 years ago, President Abraham Lincoln faced a divided nation, more divided than today. Even while engaging in the Civil War, President Lincoln managed to abolish slavery with the passage of the 13th Amendment, promote agriculture and education by establishing land-grant colleges, began construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, and instituted the first income tax to pay for the Civil War, which was levied in a fair way. Today, the Republicans and Democrats are divided over taxes and spending. Which plan best deals with the financial problems this country is facing? President Obama and the Democrats have a plan which increases tax rates on the richest 2%, while keeping taxes low for those with income of $250,000 or less. The President proposes reducing some spending on programs so we can invest in education, bridges, roads, tunnels, and clean energy, which will create jobs and prepare us for the future. While some Republicans agree that we need more revenue, they're not willing to raise tax rates on the rich. They propose other revenue measures in exchange for cutting spending on many federal programs that benefit people. People who are old, people who can no longer work because of illness, people who need food and shelter and a hand up. And the Republicans resist any measures that would increase spending, even projects that would help grow the economy. Some folks began to wonder, what would Lincoln do? How would he solve the seemingly unsolvable problems? Here is their story.
We are here to call on the spirit and wisdom of one of our greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln. Join hands, close your eyes, call on Mr. Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln, do you hear us, sir?
Lincoln.
Will you help us now when we need your wisdom and guidance more? Mr. Lincoln, are you there? Are you there? I am here to help. I can see you need my help. Can I help you move this nation forward by answering your questions? Please, let me hear your questions.
Sir, when you faced your financial problems, how to pay for the Civil War, why did you think that the tax had to be fair?
Good question. Even in 1860, there was no such thing as a free lunch. We knew that government had to pay its bills. So, in 1862, in order to pay for the Civil War and to save the Union, Congress passed the nation's first income tax law. It was the forerunner of the very income tax system that your president is dealing with today. Even back in my day, these taxes were graduated or progressive, where the richer folks paid a little more than the working class folks. Some called it class warfare, but I called it justice. Under my tax system, a person earning $600,000 to $10,000 per year paid tax at a rate of 3%. Folks with incomes of more than $10,000 paid taxes at a higher rate. This is in the same balanced approach that your president is proposing. Taxes on the richest among us, those who can most afford it, should pay their fair share to raise revenues that are needed. Just to bring this point a little closer to today's debate, the $10,000 cutoff for higher taxes in my day would be just over $212,000 in 2009 dollars. Just about the same point that President Obama has set for higher taxes. So my suggestion to President Obama is the same as I did. Stand your ground. Fight for fairness on this tax issue. Make sure that those Republicans, those guys who were my party and when I was president, do the right thing by the American people. Your president is on your side, and in that, he cannot lose. Is there another question?
Republicans today say that by making the rich pay higher taxes, it's like a war on the wealthy. What do you say?
It's hard for me, who has seen the reality and the death and devastation of the war between the states, to conceive of a fair tax system being compared to war. So making the rich contribute to their country should not ever be viewed as war. But in some ways, the Civil War in my day was fought because the southern states viewed the federal government as attacking their culture, their way of life, their economic system, slavery, and they wanted to keep this economic system based on enslaving millions. This system was both inhumane and unsustainable, and why I fought so hard for the 13th Amendment. Instead of realizing that our nation could no longer endure half free and half slave, they wanted to sustain this system or go back, much in the same way as some Tea Party members of today are taking their country back. I find it curious and compelling that some of these very same states are even today talking about another round of secession from our union. Taxes are not an assault on the free enterprise system that built our nation. As another one of your presidents said, Franklin D. Roosevelt, taxes are the dues we pay for the privileges of membership in organized society. Like your President Obama, FDR knew that everyone benefits from a fair tax system, from the services that government provides, whether it's from the roads we use to get to church or work, or the bridges that businesses need to get their foods and goods to market, or from the federal government's regulation of planes, those amazing things that fly in the sky, so they don't crash. These leaders know that a fully functioning federal government works for all of us, and those dues or taxes are the fairest way to pay for the benefits that we all enjoy as citizens of this great country. President Lincoln, will you stay and answer more questions? He will answer more questions. Does someone have another question for the President?
President Lincoln, while you were in the midst of a horrible war, how did you have the wisdom and the vision to undertake a huge construction project like the Transcontinental Railroad? Tell us what we can learn from your day.
I'd be glad to. The railroad project was my show of hope. We needed this to win the war, but also to ensure our future. As president, I authorized the construction and operation of the Transcontinental Railroad. The rail system created a mighty nation westward to the Pacific, bringing with it work, wealth, and growth to our reunited nation. The Pacific Railroad Acts of 1862 and 1864 were enacted during the Civil War. Congress funded it with 30-year government bonds and extensive land grants of government-owned land. Talk about stimulus spending. This rail system was one of the crowning achievements of my administration. Because of government spending on railroads that crossed the plains and reached over the high mountains, the West was open for settlers, businesses, and economic growth. When that last spike was driven, everyone benefited from the transcontinental transportation network that revolutionized the population and the economy of the United States. This would not have been possible without the federal government. So first and foremost, I would say to your President Obama that he should insist on spending where it will do the most good for the most people. Building and rebuilding our highways and bridges serves all the people and creates jobs. Investing in clean energy projects will prepare for the day when we run out of coal, oil, and natural gas. Republican opposition to stimulating our economy through government spending on infrastructure is short-sighted and just plain wrong. Your President Obama's building plans are on the right track, no pun intended here, just like the railroad in my day. Years from now, the roads and bridges that you build today will stand as your commitment to America's future. There must be some other
Some
questions.
people claim that spending money and increasing the deficit is the greatest threat to the future of our children. What would you say to a President Obama about this?
This is a very important question. I would say that living with one eye on the future is never threatening or foolish. It's where you're going to live the rest of your lives. Ignoring your children's future and their needs is threatening. Waging war without paying for it is foolish. I knew that once the war was over and the nation united again, we would need smart, well-educated people to forge a better future. So I knew that we had to help our young people with education and job opportunities so our nation could again grow and prosper. During my presidency, the concept of publicly funded agriculture and technical education land-grant colleges began to take hold. In 1862, I signed the Morrill Act, which established land-grant colleges in Iowa, Kansas, and New Jersey. These colleges, just like your land-grant college called Penn State, began to help students get the education that would form the basis of our later prosperity. Your President Obama is doing the same thing, investing in the young people who are the future of this nation by making student loans more affordable, cutting out the banks as middleman, keeps the cost down, and makes college affordable. Republicans today want to go backwards and raise these costs, reduce the grants to kids who need help to go to college. Let's be clear and honest, as Abe would say. President Obama should continue to move forward. Fight these Republican efforts. Help kids get to and stay in school. Their future and ours depends on them. I have time for one more question.
Some people say we can no longer afford to continue social programs that pay for medical care, retirement for seniors, and food for those in need, or school lunch programs. What do you say?
How can any nation that calls itself Christian refuse to feed the hungry or care for sick children or the elderly? I once said that a nation divided against itself cannot stand. We cannot divide our citizens into makers and takers. We cannot allow children to go hungry while Wall Street bankers feast. We cannot allow sickness and suffering to prevail when we have the great medicines and doctors ready to alleviate that suffering or to cure illnesses. We cannot divide this great country into those who can pay and those who cannot. For the good of the nation, we must unite and share the wealth of the nation in a fair and balanced way. President Obama wants to make sure that government can continue to support individuals who simply can't do it on their own. We can bargain for better drug prices, set up health systems in which care is provided to prevent illness, continue research for new medicines and cures, and make sure that hungry children get a lunch in school so they can hear their teachers instead of their rumbling bellies. The great orator William Jennings Bryan once noted, "When I find a man who is not willing to bear his fair share of the burdens of government that protects him, I find a man unworthy to enjoy the blessings of a government like ours." I pray that your President Obama is able to find the citizens worthy of this wonderful government and country, and that his opponents realize that these taxes are the price to keep this country moving forward. Now I must leave you. God bless you, and God bless, I am proud to say, the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln.